In a city where a nice suit or a badge can mean the world, and where procedure is often just another word for profiling, you get used to knowing exactly what's expected of you, and if you look like me, you hat's not. So, picture this. A red Aston Martin cruising down the boulevard, the kind of car that glows like a dare under the city's tired sun, driven by a black man, calm, sharp, too collected for the story those cops needed to tell themselves. That was me, Darius Cole. Not just a driver, but deep cover Homeland Security, and you already neck-deep investigating the same crooked ring those two officers worked for. Funny thing, they thought they'd found their mark. In reality, they just rolled up on a guy trained to rip apart systems like theirs from the inside out. So, there I am, gliding through the city after months buried in a mess of surveillance and dead-end digital trails, finally letting myself feel what it's like to just drive. I just closed a contract reel, cloak and dagger stuff and for once. There was no crisis in my pocket, no call for backup. Just old jazz on a radio and the clean, smooth hum of an engine that I owned outright. No strings, no secrets. I took the long way home. I didn't have to, but after everything I'd seen, I wanted to remember what normal felt like, even if it never really belonged to me. You can guess what happened next, right? 2 blocks after I'd passed the neighborhood line, a cruiser slides in behind me black and white, slow and certain. I could practically feel their eyes running over the car, then over me. That part? I'm used to. Doesn't matter what badge I carry or how many times I've served my country. A black man in a car like that is still a question to some people. I kept my hands at 10 and 2, didn't flinch when the lights flashed. This wasn't my first ride through the circus. Let me back up a CSU. Ever notice how power walks up on you slow, then slaps you all at once? That's how they came out of the cruiser. 2 white officers, one older with that sunburned, scowl-lined face, the other younger, cocky, barely out of his rookie years, but already convinced he knew everything. License and registration. The old one said, bored, like this was just another stop on his way to coffee. I kept it smooth, showed my hands, told them exactly where I was reaching. No sudden moves if you know. The younger one raised an eyebrow when he saw the paperwork. This your car? Like maybe I'd borrowed it from a buddy who'd forgotten I existed. Yeah, I said, picked it up yesterday. Wrapped a federal contract, decided to celebrate. He didn't like that answer. They never do. You can flash a badge, a college degree. A paycheck still won't mean a thing if you don't look like the story they're used to. What kind of contract? He pressed, and when I told him, cybersecurity. Sensitive systems. It was like I told him I owned the moon. That was all it took for the charade to drop. We've had reports of stolen vehicles, the old cop said, eyes never leaving my face. Mine stepping out so we can run a few checks. The cuffs came next. Not too tight, not enough to break skin, just enough to send a message. You don't belong, not here, not in that car. That moment, pressed against the hood, I caught their names Kavanaugh and Heller, both already marked in my files, linked to a spreadsheet of dirty seizures I'd seen months back. You think you're too clean to get caught? Kavanaugh asked, voice low. No, I told him. I just know how to listen. They searched the car, called in the tow truck before even pretending to check the paperwork. The driver or tow guy didn't say a word, just locked the winch and pulled the car up onto the ramp like it was another Tuesday. It wasn't about justice. It was about taking something because they could. Now, here's the twist. This wasn't just a shakedown. The car in my car was the bait. They'd been tipped off, set up to grab it, run it through their network same as dozens of other cars, all luxury, all pulled from black or Latino drivers, all disappeared into the city's invisible lots, rebranded and auctioned to buyers with cartel ties. I watched it play out in real time because I had eyes everywhere, drone feeds, internal trackers, encrypted comms lighting up green as the Aston slipped through their hands. Back at Homeland's field stat Iona place, so off the grid you wouldn't know it existed, I briefed Leah Torres, my analyst, and sometimes the only person I trusted to call me on my worst days. She pieced it together fast. They didn't follow protocol, she said, scanning the logs. Truck was waiting. They were never planning to file this one. We tracked the car as it bounced from lot to lot, watched as forged paperwork trail behind like breadcrumbs. Everything pointed to one name, the kind you don't speak unless you want trouble, Captain Ree Monahan. A decorated officer with a history just clean enough to get him promoted, but dirty enough to leave red flags in every agency's blind spot. You want a second twist? As we prepped to breach the cartel's main storage hub, I found footage grainy, but clear enough. Leah, my own analyst, in a parking lot, talking to Monahan months before she was even assigned to my task force. Yeah, that happened. I kept it to myself. In this business, trust is a loaded word. We hit the warehouse before dawn, ATF and Homeland moving in sync. The firefight was quick, sharp gunfire, shouts, metal slamming on concrete, the Aston gleaming in the middle like a dare. We recovered files, burner phones, and proof that this was bigger than just crooked cops and car thieves. There were handlers, cleanup crews, back-channel orders coming from way higher than any precinct captain. When Monahan, Kavanaugh, and Heller slipped out through a coded service Duran exit only someone inside could have shared eye knew for sure there was a leak, and it was personal. The manhunt led us to a remote cabin classic hideout stuff. This time it was up close and ugly. Fists, steel, sweat, blood in the dirt. I took hits, gave more. In the end, I cuffed both of them myself. You took my car, I told them, voice cold. I took your whole empire. Justice is never clean, but it's honest when it finally arrives. After the arrests, after the raid, after we dumped the whole rotten system on the desks of the Inspector General and every major newsroom in the country, the dominoes fell fast. Monahan's records had been wiped by Director Nash, a mentor of mine, the one who'd orchestrated the whole operation to force the corruption into daylight. Betrayal ran all the way up Nash, had weaponized my pain, my history, every trigger I carried. And Leia? She was deep cover IG, embedded before I even hit the field, her assignment never to stop the ring, but to confirm which part of Homeland had authorized it. She'd watched everything, protected me when she could, but never stepped in odd until the end. In the end, Nash tried to run. Marshals picked him up in Bermuda. Congressional hearings followed, media firestorms, whole precincts gutted from the inside. Kavanaugh and Heller 30 years, no parole. Monahan indicted, then silent. The blue wall cracked, not from protest, but from proof, and I got my car back restored, not just as property, but as a kind of trophy for every fight I'd survived. Yeah, there's still rot in the system, but the breach is wide open now. I started a new division, handpicked every agent. No more favors, no more shadows. We chase corruption, not just crime. The headlines call me a whistleblower, but the work isn't about being seen. It's about seeing what others want to hide. And some nights when the city's quiet, I drive that Aston Martin through the streets that once tried to own me, windows down, old jazz on the radio, and for a moment, just a moment, I remember what justice sounds like when it finally breathes. Now, tell me, what would you have done, standing on that street? Right or wrong? What does justice mean to you? Comment below. Let's get real about what we call justice and who gets to decide.